Okay, so as we know, today's 10th of Shvat marks 70 years from when the Rebbe began leadership in 1950. You also may know that, assuming you know that the previous Rebbe published a 20-chapter discourse that it was intended to be published on a date that would later turn out to be his day of his passing, and therefore every year commemorating that event, the Rebbe would deliver a discourse based on and expounding on the discourse of the previous Rebbe that he had put out for what became his day of his passing, and the Rebbe would expound on one chapter every year. First year chapter 1, chapter 2, and so on. So this year on the fourth cycle would be chapter 10. So just a passage from that mimer from the Rebbe as he's analyzing chapter 10 of the previous Rebbe's mimer. Just one paragraph and the Rebbe's comment on that. So if you look at, in this booklet here, page Yud Daled, the last paragraph. So during this mimer, during this discourse that the Rebbe would deliver every year, traditionally the Rebbe would quote from all of the previous Rebbes, starting from the Baal Shem Tov, to his successor, the Maggid, to the Alter Rebbe, the second Chabad Rebbe, the third Chabad Rebbe, and so on. They would quote a teaching from each one of the Chabad Rebbe. So here we're looking at that which the Rebbe quoted from the Baal Shem Tov. And it became the cornerstone of this mimer, of this discourse, and it's highly inspirational, highly uplifting teaching from the Baal Shem Tov. So looking at the last paragraph from page Dalet. So they was talking about the previous year's mimer, and he says, we'll understand the content of this chapter that the Rebbe is analyzing of the previous Rebbe's discourse, al piteres Baal Shem Tov, based on that which the Baal Shem Tov taught. Namely, and this is now a quote from the Baal Shem Tov, Adam. As a result of someone's great humility, it might cause that he gets distant from Hashem, the service of Hashem. It's counterintuitive. Usually, and we'll talk about that more as we go on, but usually you associate the service of Hashem with humility. Of course, the idea is to be humble. And yet here, the Baal Shem Tov is warning us against the pitfalls of excessive humility.
False humility.
We're going to see. Because
really humility is...
So we're going to get to all of it. We're going to cover it. So the great humility of one can lead one to distance him from the service of Hashem. How's that? Because of his viewing himself as worthless, shiftless, he sees himself as too low. He doesn't believe that man has a capacity to cause and effectuate through his prayer, and through his Torah, shefa al kol ha'ilmus, an influx and infusion of divine energy into all of the world, not just physical but the spiritual. So he feels like he's insignificant. What, my prayer matters to anybody? Doesn't mean anything. He doesn't believe it. That's the false humility.
It's wrong. It's against.
We're learning.
It's understandable.
Yeah, it's understandable why someone would think that. I'm a small person, right? I'm a small person. There's a massive, vast world. There's spiritual worlds at length, and I'm a small little person. What does my Torah and prayer mean? And the Baal Shem Tov is saying that's the big mistake.
Especially compared to the fact that
there are greater tzaddikim and there are angels.
Greater people than I.
That's right.
There are rabbis.
And this, the Baal Shem Tov says, is the big mistake. Yeah. The Gamam Halachim, and even angels, all the spiritual worlds, and even angels, Nizonin, are sustained through his Torah and his prayer. If you would properly believe this, that his Torah and his prayer has the capacity to elicit divine influx into all of creation, into all of the worlds, plural, and feed the angels. How would he serve? How he would serve Hashem with great joy and great awe and reverence beyond anything. It's a reference to the play on our words in a verse. Beyond anything, and as Rebbe later explains in this mimer, beyond anything means beyond all the pleasures that the spiritual worlds have to offer, like the famous Mishnah. Greater is one moment of teshuvah and good deeds in this world more than kol, using this word kol again, this word all, greater than all the share in the world to come. So a person realized that his Torah and his prayer, all of the spiritual worlds are relying on it. The angels and the spiritual worlds and the physical worlds, everybody's relying on your Torah and prayer. If we truly believe this, how much joy and how much awe and reverence there would be, and every time he opens his words to say the words of Torah and prayer.
Also, the Rambam is more. The world's likely balanced. Your one mitzvah tips the world to
whole world for benefit in this world.
That's
and
right.
other worlds, yeah.
The Gam.
Doesn't be wrong. The whole world is pushed to this side. So each person counts.
The Gam lost his lives. Now, in addition to that, more not just as is it that the worlds are relying on him and the angels are relying on him for his Torah and his prayer and how valued his every word is. Moreover, the Gam lost his lev. He should also take into consideration, says the Baal Shem Tov, and Masha Nemar, about that which the verse says, "Im tishkufun bein svatayim." If you're to lie between, svatayim literally means lips, but also means like the edges. So the Baal Shem Tov is interpreting to mean actually lips, that he's lying between the lips. What does this mean? So says the Baal Shem Tov, Shad Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be, Shomer is guarding v'shaykid and waiting in anticipation. Al svasa adam, at the lips of man, lenoishka, to kiss it. Kishua oimra b'Torah tefillah, when he uses his lips to say the words of Torah and prayer. Not only are the angels relying on him, not only are all the spiritual world relying on and waiting for him to do Torah and tefillah so he can elicit divine energy into all of it, but Hashem himself is standing and waiting and saying, I want to kiss you, my dear child. Say a word of Torah, say a word of prayer, and in those words I'll give you a kiss. Knowing that Hashem is waiting, shaykid means like, comes to the word shkida. It's like I'm standing there in anticipation, waiting. Could you say a word of Torah? I want to engage. Knowing this, mizehu, who is going to be that person?
Like a shoked, you're really like a kadosh. That's all.
You're reading his words, yeah.
He's always diligently serving Hashem.
So mizehu aish, who is the man? Asher lo yachzenu reses v'zehu, won't be caught by trembling and sweat. Shamelech gadol v'noda, that the great and awesome King, the Holy One, blessed be, shomer v'shoyked as vasayim shel adam, is standing and waiting in anticipation at the lips of man. When are you going to say a word of Torah? How much joy and how much enthusiasm and how much reverence there would be all mixed in one in every word. Therefore, says the Baal Shem Tov, tzarech ha'adam lasim lev v'loymar, a man must take into consideration and say, kol tenuosav, every movement, v'asakav, and all the things he's engaged with, v'dibura, in every word, oiseroshim l'mayla, has its effect above. Masha'enkin, but kishachoyshav adam, I think there's a little bit of a print mistake here, but kishachoyshav adam mandi safal lefnim, oitaka l'mayla mata, when a person thinks to himself, what am I worth to be brought into this like inner circle or to make any change here, above, below? This is a big pitfall people fall into. I'm a small little person, I'm a nobody, it's not going to make a big deal. Says the Baal Shem Tov, no. A Jew sitting in the privacy of his own home, nobody sees him, and nobody knows him, and nobody... It's irrelevant. Hashem himself and all of creation, physical and spiritual, are waiting to see when is he going to say a word of Torah and Tefillah. And as a result of him thinking that he's not worth it, he ends up following whatever his heart's desire because it doesn't make a difference anyway. Big mistake. And this is similar to that which the Gemara says, that the humility of Zechariah caused the Churban. What's this a reference to? This is a reference to the Gemara in Gittin. That's right. Vav Amud Aleph, the Gemara in Gittin 56a describes the story of a person who had an enemy named, a friend named Kamsa, and an enemy named Bar Kamsa. And he made a big feast, and he intended on inviting his friend Kamsa, but instead invited mistakenly his enemy Bar Kamsa. Bar Kamsa assumed the person wanted to make up with him. He arrived and was asked to leave. He pleaded with the owner, I'll pay for my own meal, I'll pay for half the meal, I'll pay for the whole thing, just don't embarrass me and throw me out. But the guy did. And he was so, what's the word? He was so disturbed by the event, he decided he's going to tell the Romans and incite them against the Jewish people. And he went to the Romans and said, the Jewish people are rebelling. How do I know they're rebelling? You try to send an offering to be offered in the temple and you'll see what they're going to do. So the Roman general sent a offering with Bar Kamsa, and Bar Kamsa made a small slit in its eyelid, I think, right?
There are two opinions.
It's the eyelid or if it's on his lip.
Yeah, that means the Jews like a bad eye and also the mouth, that they spoke badly one against the other.
And of course, even though
it's a mum for Yisrael, not mum for another.
That's right, the Gemara says that. So even though
so if
a non-Jew were to offer that offering out to the temple, it would have been accepted.
Yeah.
But putting it in the temple cannot be done. So when
we had lips and eyes yesterday in the Gemara.
That's right, yeah.
Same idea. Yeah. Same concept.
Same concept.
Yeah.
But it's interesting thing from the Jewish
We had
language, you have
lips
the
just anymore. We
reference,
had feet.
Well, feet, yeah,
We had foot and eyes.
Feet and the eye, but similar.
Yeah. Anyway, so he Bar Kamsa arrives with this carbon, with this offering that's blemished and therefore invalid, and they ask Zechariah ben Avkolos, I think it's pronounced the name, what should we do? So they suggest, let's just, in order to save the Roman, and for the peace, keep peace with our local overlords, instead of having them, what's the word? Come out with wrath against us. Yeah. Let's just take the carbon. Okay, so it's a little bit of
provoke them.
Let's not provoke them. It's a small little sin, but let's do it.
It's pikuach nefesh, war.
It's a question of life and death. Yeah. And Zechariah says, no, if we do that, then we're going to set a precedent that you're allowed to accept blemished offerings. So they said, okay, so let's just do away with this fellow Bar Kamsa, and he will never go back to the Romans to tell him what happened.
He's a monster, basically.
And which there's halachas about that, which is not for now. But Zechariah said, well, if you do that, then people are going to start saying that if you bring an offering to the temple that has a blemish, you're liable for capital punishment. And we don't want to set that precedent either. And so they ended up doing nothing, not accepting the offering. And as a result of that, Bar Kamsa went back to Rome, told Rome, look, you see they didn't accept your offering, and that brought on the wrath of Rome, which led to the destruction and the death of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Jews. And the Gemara concludes with the comment, the humility of Zechariah is what caused the carbon. It caused the destruction. The humility. In other words, in the fact that he didn't, as Rashi says, his savlonos, he was being too permissive and not taking it upon his shoulders to do it, not taking a stand and doing what had to be done. Either take a stand and take it upon your shoulders to do this blemished offering, or take it upon your shoulders to get rid of this one fellow who's going to save hundreds of thousands of Jews. And because he didn't have the backbone to do what had to be done, the temple was destroyed. So the Baal Shem Tov is comparing it to our statement here, that a Jew should not see himself as, whatever, my actions aren't so valuable. No, every action that we do is that valuable. And Rebbe got comments on this, and saying that the fact that Baal Shem Tov compares it to this Gemara means that if the false humility caused the destruction, then knowing how valuable you are is akin to building the Beis Hamikdash. Is akin to building the temple. Building the temple is the subject, as you heard, is the subject of this mimer, and this idea of not just building a physical temple, but building that our personal lives become a temple for Hashem to dwell in. Right? So it's a crucial element of building this home for Hashem in our own personal lives and the world around us is remembering that your actions are valuable. And not just the angels, not this spiritual world, not this physical world, but Hashem himself, Shem V'Sheket, the king is standing and waiting. When are you going to say a word of Torah and Tefillah so I can give you a hug and give you a kiss?
Otherwise, why does Hashem create a person? To me, it's obvious. If in fact we're here with Hashem's will, we're obviously why did He create the world?
Okay.
Create people,
So now,
but the context of the Baal Shem Tov's comments should be looked at how in the context of as a criticism of his fellow Jews or as an empowerment of his fellow Jews.
Empowerment.
Empowerment,
sure. The whole idea is empowerment, not to think you're nobody. Don't think you're nobody. It's a big pitfall people fall for often.
Because the way you can read it the other way too. If you're not the historical context is a hierarchical system, right?
The historical context, yes, that's correct.
Right, that the Baal Shem Tov was trying to break through and saying to people, you have that power. You have it. It's not like get up, you're asleep.
Unfortunately, Jews at the time were being told, at least the simple Jews who weren't in the ivory towers and halls of scholarship, that you're worthless. You don't understand what you're saying anyway. And the Baal Shem Tov is big teaching, big revelation, which is obvious to all of Yiddishkeit, but like a spotlight needed to be highlighted because the reality is it was not highlighted. Until today, it's still not being highlighted enough, in my humble opinion. And if it were highlighted enough, Jews would be doing much better in reaching out, especially talking about reaching out to other Jews. In reminding Jews that no such thing as a simple Jew whose actions don't count. You don't have to wait to become somebody who's sitting on the dais. Don't wait for that. And that's not the goal either. But the little action you do, the little Torah you do, the little tefillah you do, all of creation, all of history, and Hashem himself is waiting for it.
There's value to being a cut, not a guddle. Right?
Yeah, so now let's get into the interplay. Okay, so now let's go to the last page here. Not the last page, sorry, the page Mem Vav. This is not from the Mimer itself, but later in the talk, or the next, later that week, Rebbe spoke about, Rebbe continued the conversation about this Mimer.
Is he saying Mem Vav?
Page Mem Vav. Mm-hmm. And there was commenting on that which he discussed in the Maimer. I don't know if we're able to get through all of it. At least we'll begin some of it. We'll get to the...
Tomorrow, it's also...
We'll continue tomorrow, yeah.
Because it's Yod Aleph, Yod and Yod Aleph.
So it says like this. Mitoides Baal Shem Tov Shovel Ba Maimer. From the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov that we quoted earlier in the Maimer, which we just finished learning, about the pitfall of misplaced humility, the danger of misplaced humility, which the Baal Shem Tov compared to the humility of Zechariah, who didn't take a stand with the issue of this blemished carbon from Bar Kamsa, which caused the destruction of the temple as we just described. Moving is understood, so therefore it's understood in the reverse, that in order to effectuate the building of the Beis Hamikdash, building a home for Hashem in this world, the coming of Mashiach, one's service has to be not in the manner of this false humility, on the contrary, with a sense of upliftedness and a sense of confidence, if you will, empowerment. And now they've asked the following, the question that I assume is on everybody's mind here is, well, what happened to humility as a central theme of the service of Hashem, and how's the interplay between these two things? On the one hand, or where's the line drawn, where's the interplay between humility, that's a requirement in the service of Hashem, and the sense of confidence, the sense of empowerment, the sense of understanding the value of what I bring, and the fact that everything I do is worth something, and that Hashem is waiting. So there's a balance, and there's like a paradox here, in the humility and the confidence, and how do we deal with that? And this is what Rebbe is about to address. But first, Rebbe elaborates on the question. Which the whole page here is the question, and then the next page is the answer. So in the question, this is like this: the movement seems to be not understood. But the Rishi Admor Hazaken, in the teachings of the founder of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, which are printed in the suffix, the appendix, the added section of the Alter Rebbe's work known as Torah, Mavur Maimer Azal. The following statement of our sages explained. Talmud Chacham, this is what the Gemara says in Saita, that a Talmud Chacham, a scholar, a God-fearing person, that a Talmud Chacham should have an eighth, a 16th of ego. 64th, I'm sorry.
That's what I did, the lesson sheet. That's one.
That's right. Ma'at Gaiva, very, very, very little ego. So explains the Alter Rebbe that when the sages say that a Talmud Chacham should have this tiny little bit of ego, quote from the Alter Rebbe, it's specifically at the beginning of a service. Why? Because at that juncture, when a person is about to begin his service of Hashem, he has to negate that which his evil inclination might tell him, that he's not worthy of approaching the service of Hashem, by saying to himself, kind of like we learned from Baal Shem Tov, who am I and what's my service worth? And therefore, at that juncture, there's required a little bit of ego to say, no, my service is worth something. But the Alter Rebbe continues and says, but afterwards, when a person's already in the midst of his service of Hashem, and he no longer needs to fight off this false humility, then says the Alter Rebbe that one should let go of even that 64th of ego. All gone. Let's learn. At this juncture, all we need is another. That's what the Alter Rebbe writes. That this little bit of gaiva that's there is only at the beginning of one's service of Hashem, when he might feel held back, thinking that it's not worth anything. And is explained there by the Alter Rebbe that this idea of the small humility, the tiny bit of ego that's required at the beginning of one's service of Hashem is kamashal. This is a quote from the Alter Rebbe. It's kamashal, is like a parable. Hamutz, gadol savavachita. It's like the I think the word is dross. The shaft. Sorry, that's the word. Dross metal. Yes, the shaft that's around the wheat. Like there's a quote from the Gemara there, and Rashi, that the little bit of ego is like a chaff around the wheat, so it envelops him. In other words, protects him. It's as like a guard. The shaft is to protect the wheat, that it's not shriveled and dried up by the sun and not ruined by the rain. So it's only at the beginning. But once the wheat stalk is fully grown, then actually you remove the shaft through the process of threshing. All you have left is the kernel. So likewise, says the Alter Rebbe, at the beginning, when you require a certain protection against the Yetzer Hara telling you that you're nobody, that's when you have to have a little bit of ego, like the shaft, to protect you. But once you're already developed and you're already into your service of Hashem, and you no longer are fighting with this inclination that tells you you're not worth anything, let go of the ego. Now, this seems to contradict our teaching from the Baal Shem Tov, because that which we said in the name of the Baal Shem Tov above is not just at the beginning of one service of Hashem. Even when someone's service of Hashem is at the height, in the top level, even then a person has to have even then a person should have that confidence and that empowerment that every word he says is valuable and Hashem is waiting for him, not just at the beginning. So it seems to be a bit of a contradiction. And as mentioned earlier, in explaining that which the Baal Shem Tov said, quote, etc. Had he believed that everything he does is worth it, and every single thing every word in Torah he does is all the angels and all the worlds are waiting for him. He would serve Hashem with joy, more than everything. That this idea of serving Hashem with more joy than everything, more than everything means is greater than every single pleasure, including the most lofty of them. In the world, in Gan Eden even, beyond any revelation, because the essence of Hashem is waiting for His service, and therefore His service would be infused with a sense of empowerment greater than all the joy of all the world to come. So therefore, in a move on, therefore it's not understood. Why would the Alter Rebbe say that only at the beginning? Why does the Baal Shem Tov say that there's no humility and that a person always has to have a sense of empowerment? So is the empowerment, like the Alter Rebbe said, only at the beginning of one service, or is the empowerment throughout the entire service, even as a person climbs the highest rungs of a service of Hashem, of a service of God, he still should feel empowered that everything he does is valuable and worth it? Or, like the Alter Rebbe said, it's only at the beginning of one service of Hashem. And that pushes the question even further. The Yeshadayik, we might highlight the precise language, in the precise language of the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, Hanis Galil mentioned above, that the great and awesome king is waiting in anticipation over the lips of man, waiting to hear when is he going to say a word of Torah. The Baal Shem Tov uses the term Noida Daika, the awesome king specifically. So you might suggest, says that the precise wording is based on that which is well known. The Inyan HaNoida, this is a bit Kabbalistic, so I'm going to translate it, but we're not going to dwell too much on it. Now, the word HaNoida of Shekoy al Sfiras HaTiferes is a reference to the attribute of Tiferes, which is mercy. For Tiferes, and this attribute of mercy, divine attribute of mercy, it's a blend of Chesed and Gevurah, and therefore it's mercy. I'm not going to get into all of it right now, but that's the bottom line. Yeah, but Tiferes Oila the Keser, and this mercy, this Tiferes goes to the highest level known as Keser, the crown, which transcends even the systems of logic. Yeah. Keser, and this level of Keser, this level which transcends even the system of logic, this is where the humility comes from. And one of the basic reasons is because a person who gets caught up with his own intelligence or his own refined character, that's sometimes where his ego comes. But the level which transcends a level of, I'm doing what I have to because this is the right thing, transcends what I think, what I feel, and what I want, that's where humility comes from. So, and he brings up a medrash, and Yerushalmi also, or medrash on the Yerushalmi anyway, to back up this idea, as we find an explanation of our sages, Mash asa chachma atar l'reisha, asa nava ekev l'ragla. What the crown does, what wisdom does as a crown to the head, does humility do as a heel to the foot. Shenemar, as the verse reads, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of heaven. In other words, there's a crown above the head. And it says also that the heel of humility is the fear of Hashem. So they both serve, meaning to say, both of them serve as a crown. They both serve as a crown, both wisdom beyond, like the level of Chachma, as fear of heaven, and this humility. Now, therefore, the question becomes strengthened, and in moments understood, that which the Baal Shem Tov said, and completely negating the idea of humility, that a person always has to feel empowered. Bottom line question: when is empowerment always to be felt? I always feel empowered, and I always feel like everything I do is worth it, or do I only do that to get me going? And once I'm serving Hashem, let go of your ego. You're completely self-effaced in front of Hashem, like the chaff falls off the wheat, and now serve Hashem with humility. Or, like the Baal Shem Tov said, a person always feels empowered, even to the very end, he always feels empowered that every single thing I do is valuable. So I don't have time to read this inside, but
You're here tomorrow?
I'm going to be here tomorrow. Okay, so we'll get to the answer tomorrow. But at least for now, just the beauty of this teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, the beauty of this idea that, it's a bit counterintuitive, but when a person thinks about it, it becomes obvious. That oftentimes, not only do we feel, first of all, people feel like they're worthless. That's just an unfortunate reality. But the reality is people don't feel that way all the time, right? This is the fact of life.
The rabbi should tell me you want a divine
So this is what the rabbi is telling them, no?
The pasuk chumash, you don't need a.
This is why the rabbi is telling them. See, there's a bit of a problem. When we teach this and we say something novel, you say it's novel and it's not in Torah. And then we say something novel, you say it's pshita. So which one is it? This is part of learning. We're learning just because it's pshita doesn't mean.
How can a person think he knows the hazinos that they read the Torah? They're not talking about the grace alone. It's just.
The reality is the fact remains. There are people who don't feel empowered. They don't. It's the fact. It's just the reality of life, and therefore, they're being told by the Baal Shem Tov that every single word, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shoyked v'Shomer, God Himself is standing and waiting in anticipation. I want to give you a kiss on the lip. I want to hear you say a word of Torah. I want to hear you say a word of prayer. And when you do so, Hashem is giving you a kiss. Knowing that, what kind of joy and fierce and awe simultaneously the person will have in every word of Torah, even something as simple of. I'm not going to go rattle off the words. Hashem is standing and waiting and to hear, and every word is a kiss from Hashem. Say it slowly, say it clearly, say it with a little focus. It's a completely life-transforming teaching. When a person takes this to heart, not just knows it in the abstract, but a person takes it to heart truly, that every single word of Torah and Tefillah is Hashem standing and waiting for him. It's a transformative and super empowering teaching. How we reconcile this with a sense of humility that's required throughout all of our service, that, God willing, coming tomorrow.